So here we are again, and when we last caught up I had a Porsche that wasn't starting, just adjusting my hand position. There we go. And it looked as though the problem was the battery, because I couldn't honestly think of any other reason why the car wouldn't start. At that point I also had no reason to think the battery was not the original battery, and that led me to think that the charge wasn't being held and wasn't enough ampage available and so on and so forth. Anyway, a conversation with the dealer in Guildford has happily resolved the situation, and weirdly it turns out to be a very unusual problem. So when you bought a 997 from the factory, where else would you buy it from? It came with Porsche's tracking system, or at least the infrastructure for that built in. So somewhere in the car is a sensor, a tracking device, and it has a second part to it, which is one of these little cards. In fact, there's two. You get two as an owner, you get two keys, two cards. Now, these require subscription to Vodafone to work. That's where the telemetry bit comes from, and how they then contact you to say someone's nicked your car. And I don't have that subscription yet, and it turns out neither did the previous owner. But what happens is, if you don't have a subscription live on the car, Vodafone after a while in effect stops, disables the system. It turns it into a sort of passive mode. And it turns out that when you do that, when they do it, these little cards can be set to act as passive immobilizers, and there's the clue. Now I'd thought to myself on the Saturday, the day I collected the car, should I get one of these in my pocket and try starting the car? And in fact I did. I've got two. I picked up one, got in the car, turned it over, nothing happened. And I was thinking, well, that kind of makes sense, because this is a tracking device. It has no effect on the ignition. It's not an immobilizing device. Turns out it did, and my luck was poor, because I picked up the other one. Only one of these is set to work, to start the car up. The other one wasn't. So a very useful conversation with the technician, and the Porsche technician said, I've come across this very, very occasionally. He said, just pick one up, put it in your pocket, and of course the car started completely normally. Since then, I've also had the paperwork through from the previous owner or owners, and determined that the battery was, in fact, the current one was put in the car in 15, so it's 3 years old, and I think I'd led myself to think the battery was the problem. It clearly isn't. I've no idea what actual condition it's in, but it's 3 years old, so it should be fine. So that problem seems to have passed. Whether it was deep discharging or not, I don't know. I think the car had been sat doing nothing for several days, or several weeks in fact, at the dealer, so that may be why the battery was in a slightly more discharged state. Anyway, we have one of those. We have one of these which does have an immobilizer in it, so in effect we've got two systems going on. Let's put it in and let's see what happens. So the key goes in, there we are, turn it on. I've got the door open just for the effect, and put the clutch in. Here we go. And that would appear to be a working Porsche. So good news all round, and that little hiccup, little blip has solved itself. I now need to get the tracking system actually enabled properly. Let's just turn that off, and get the cards working as they're supposed to. But it's nice to know that there's nothing mechanically wrong with the car. It's actually doing, in a sense, what it was designed to do. Now, in fact, since then we've had the car out, given it a good run. It's got a nice film of grot all over it, so it's properly used. And of course that first run was an absolute delight. So very happy with that, and it's nice to know that the car isn't at fault, and a little quirk has been resolved. So happy days, and now we have a starting 911, we can use it.